Okay, keep in mind I'm already feeling the utter amazement of what I'm about to tell you guys. So, in order for me to make plain what I said about Shinar and how all of this connects to that drawing, its connection to Sharon, we need to just simply remember how all this started. And do not ever forget what you learned here about Jesus Christ rebuking, right? And he turned and rebuked them and said, Ye know not what manner of spirit ye are of, for the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. His disciples are talking about destroying men, calling fire down from the sky like Elijah supposedly did. And Jesus Christ is saying, that's not the spirit. That's not the spirit. In Revelation 11, many people tout the return of Elijah and Moses as the two witnesses. Now you have to keep something in mind. What did I show you in the book of Jude, where it describes the devil was disputing over the body of Moses, and Michael was there, and he just simply said, "The Lord rebuke you." And he did not bring a railing accusation against him. And remember how we saw Moses was making that serpent staff in the wilderness and lifting it up as the emblem of God. And we found out the emblem of God, of which that was, which was Enki, this wisdom bearer, the wise serpent, and in that rod symbol is his symbol for wisdom, the caduceus. So that is why the devil is trying to claim the body of Moses, but we see that Jesus Christ's mercy through that of Michael is there to readily accept Moses and rebukes the devil right there on the spot. Well, we're going to find that happen exactly the same way with another famous Israelite by the name of Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim. And just understand that Elijah is already being shown by Jesus is not having the true spirit, and that the true spirit does not seek to destroy men's lives in a vengeful act, certainly not at the women call of men, regardless of the issues. So Jesus Christ is rebuking any and all disciples against this supposed calling down of the fire of the sky in the name of vengeance of our Father. Know that and understand that. And realize that people are already beginning to backpedal and make videos to support their supposed claims. But in reality, they're just showing you that they're scared. That they know that they are being steadily and efficiently shown for the lack of teaching, the true word of Jesus Christ. You have to be highly alert. And for anybody that's listening to me, I'm happy you're here because you were meant to hear this. So keep that in mind. Okay. And let us do this here. Got a lot to talk about, and it is going to be very, very interesting here. Give me 1 second to put a place mark in. Alright. I want to return this real fast here to Revelation 11. Just real quick. And keep in mind 4 witnesses. If you look at how this transpires, and I certainly assure you that I'm completely able to break this thing down word for word in a new and broader understanding than I had when I did the original video. I'm not going to try to do that right now. It's going to take too much time. I'm going to try to bring us back to Zechariah with the Shinar. But in order to do that, you got to see something here. And you've got to understand what's taking place. So, as we see the supposed 2 witnesses that are supposed to prophesize, the 2 witnesses that are prophesizing out of the original 4 right now is false witnesses. It's the false nation witnesses, and it's comprised of their religious factions and their political factions. These 2 portions of witnesses, in other words, Israel, political Israel, northern Israel, the leader, the political leader of the tribes, of the nations, of the United Nations, the United States, the torn olive branch United Nations, with their form of the golden candlestick, their mystery religions, of which we see being displayed by the footmen and the soldiers of the occult that we see here on YouTube. They're trying to cause so much drama and confusion that they think they got on lockdown. They think they got people going crazy. They think everybody's on wheat. But in reality, we're going to see that they the wheat themselves. And it's going to be so interesting when we see the fullness of this, and how the Spirit of Truth is going to have the ability to teach the broader panoramic that will expand beyond the threshold of certain people's current understanding. Now, so when we begin here, chapter 11, the gate chapter of Golgotha, the city of dead, cemetery, the narrative only picks up with the group of false witnesses and their narration of their plagues and destruction that they're carrying out on mankind. As I told you, associated with the harp, the weather control, and all that. And of course, the fire that's being called from the sky. Now remember Jesus Christ rebuking, and then all of the other occasions that we see multiple times with all the other verses in Revelation with the supposed fire coming from the sky associated with this millstone. It's the same thing. So this is setting us up for the event, for the millstone, of which the false witnesses that are representing this God of the earth are about to impose. So describing about how they're going to, if anybody seeks to hurt them, so the people that have the ability to hurt them, they plan on bringing fire to them. And that's where we come up with Revelation chapter 9 that describes that the locust cannot hurt those that are sealed with the living God in their foreheads, and that would be the true believers in Jesus Christ. The true believers in Jesus Christ, as a result, can hurt the locust, and that's why this millstone must come and create this chaos, this confusion, and this distortion, destroy the system. That way they have a better way to create a foothold and gain control when they come in. And then, of course, the militaries of this country will have already begun to start imprisoning some of us and detaining us so that these locusts can freely move about unmolested by those that have the Spirit of truth. Because if you have the Spirit of truth, Jesus Christ already declared that you have power over these scorpions, over these serpents. And he's not talking about the people, he's talking about these beings that were sealed, that you have dominion over, and that would be these high spirit sons and their descendants. So listen closely here. So it describes the fire, it describes their distorting the weather and their control of it all, and then it shifts gears. And I'm telling you, I can support everything I could say. I could go in for hours just to support this one little section I'm going to show you here, and how everything I'm about to say is exactly true. It shifts gears right here and begins talking about us, the real kill them. Now, listen close here. The narrative is of the false nation witnesses. Look at a $1 bill and look at all the torn olive branches stuffed in all around. The book of Romans declares that the torn olive branch symbolizes non-belief. These are the false nation witnesses that have the control of the weather, that have the ability to call this fire down from the sky, and they've been causing all the plagues around the world. Okay? So you know the harp thing is associated with them. You know it's controlling the weather. That's them. That's the false nation witnesses. They've been doing this. When it describes the other witness that has actually finished their testimony, that would be the witnesses of the God of heaven, the true God, the representation of Jesus Christ, the God from the heavens, describing when our testimony time is finished, while we're still testifying against all of this that's taken place here, it describes that the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit seeks to make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Now, this line 7 is very dynamic because it's going to lead us to Revelation chapter 17, verse 17, that is describing the kings of the earth are urged, it's been put into their heart to give their kingdom unto the beast. It says that God has put it into their hearts to give their kingdom unto the beast. Well, at this time, we know the fullness of the representation of two gods in the Bible. The God that is truly urging them and willing them to give their kingdom to the beast, this representation of Apollyon, is the fallen God. But in the fullness of reality, our Father is absolutely in control. But he's not in wanting to give dominion, this beast dominion over our world. It's just the play between the prophecies in the scripture that these beings and peoples are trying to mimic. So the Father himself is not willing in Revelation chapter 17, verse 17, that this beast gains control over our dominion and these kingdoms have been given to him. It's the fallen Lord that is willing and urging the kings of the earth to finally give full control over to his authority. Now, we can talk about that more a little bit later, but at this point, I wanted you to understand that. So when it describes this beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, this has already began to take place. And the very kings of the earth that are being urged by this beast that is yet to come out of the bottomless pit has already been making war against us and has already been killing us. But it has not led up to the final stone that's going to be thrown, which is going to be this millstone. So all of the plagues that have happened, it's already describing the fire coming out of their mouth that's in association with killing them. And it's not real fire coming from the mouth. This is all just in association with their power and their plagues in order to cause catastrophes and destruction and storms to kill people. And they're already doing it. So the war is already taking place. I think that should be correctly translated as polymos, in which I've already described in the Obama videos how Obama is the one who starts the polymos, which should be the little war, if I remember correctly. So this war that the beast is urging the kings of the earth to already start, as you see it taking place here, is in representation of them even fulfilling the second cup. After the second cup, the war still continues. And we'll see that this beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit will still seek to destroy many after in the culmination of this supposed great war of Armageddon. So now at this point in line 7, you know that the translation switches and begins now talking about the final stone that was thrown by the false witnesses and describes it at that location of the great city. And then we see that's what line 8 describes, that now this stone has been thrown at the true witnesses. Basically, the polymos has been taking place all over this war, but it will finalize, at least in the sense with the millstone, to bring about the new world order, the new word order, which is this new word out of the mouth of the eater, the serpent. So the beast is not actually out of the bottomless pit at this point. And you can understand that because in chapter 12, this is where they start describing this woman in travail that is about to figuratively birth him. And then this woman in travail is representative of Ishtar, the queen of heaven. And of course, you see that she's got the moon under her feet. And I didn't have, since it's torn out, I don't have, I'd have to go back and flip in Revelations. We'll just have to talk about that. That's chapter 12 of Revelations. This is what we're going to start talking about in Zechariah here. And I'm telling you, they're on the moon, and this is where this is coming from. So, let's see here. Try not to lose my place here. Okay, guys. I do pray that you realize that there are some serious things going on here. We've got a double event, we've got a double experience, we've got a double perception between two sets of witnesses, and then these false witnesses are going to seek to destroy these good witnesses. And we know that the trigger that begins their control over all of the good witnesses around the world will begin the destruction of commercial Babylon, of which we're all right now trapped in. We're trapped in this confusion of Babylon, but within the confusion of Babylon, the system is still set up. So we still can get our needs, we still have our freedoms, regardless of the confusion. And then what they want to do is to bring down those needs that we're getting with the resources they seek to control and privatize, and then maintain a control over our freedoms. So this new world order, of course, is the return of the Anu world order, which is the association of that law, the return with the gods. So it's about a new order for society, in which we, as the believers of Jesus Christ that have the Spirit of truth, they seek to get fully rid of us. Now, we already went over the place where it's going to take place with Golgotha. Listen closely here. It says, "And they of the people, kindreds, and tongues, and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves." Remember I told you who the false witnesses were. They were the nations of the world. What did it describe Ephraim? He should become a multitude of nations. So eventually Ephraim did become this very true multitude of nations that eventuated as the United Nations. So when it says, "And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves." In other words, all of the people that will be destroyed on the east coast of the United States. And it's going to be this multitudes of nations, which is fully defined as Ephraim in the book of Genesis. And I've got hours worth more support that can support what I just told you there, that you're about to see as we move forward through Zechariah. And it says, "And they that dwell upon the earth," these nations at this time are still on earth. There's a portion that is been on the moon preparing for this moment. And then there's a portion of them that are preparing to go to the moon, to those that have prepared the place for them. So we see that the second cup is going to take place, this destruction, and then we're going to find out that that's when this last final group, the majority of their citizens, is going to be brought up to the moon. And it says, "And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them." These people, these false shepherds and the such, are going to rejoice when this second cup happens. Just like you see them rejoicing now about this fire from the sky, just like you see all these people going num crab meat and all this crap about lamb chops and all this coded stuff that all these people are saying about this destruction that's supposed to take place within cancer with the believers in Jesus Christ. Okay, so it's them, and it says, "And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice says, do I have any joy in him that dieth? No, God does not. Not the true Father. These people are not followers of the true Father. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. And it says, after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and a great fear fell upon them which saw them. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. Now guess what? That's two-part. This scripture right here is being fulfilled by both portions of witnesses. One are spiritually ascending to the heavenly abode after this 3 days situation. The others, 3 days later, are physically flying up to the moon. And after the 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God, the Spirit of life from our God, and then they believe the Spirit of life from their God is going to bring them up to the moon. And I wouldn't be surprised if you wouldn't find some of their huge current technology that's supposed to fly them commercial aircraft from here to the moon being called something like the Spirit of life or the Spirit. You could probably find the names of these ships that will begin to fit some of this scripture and some of the other scriptures that I'm going to talk about. I just haven't looked into it yet. And it says the Spirit of life from God went into them. Now that's covering the witnesses that were destroyed, the good witnesses. They are going to ascend. Remember, Jesus Christ says, all souls are mine. It says after this, in Revelation, it says, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged. It says it right here. It says, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come. The nations are angry. Anger is wrath. The wrath is coming from the nations, and the nations were angry, and their wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged. All right? These dead are ascending to a righteous judgment in heaven, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. Now, who are them that destroy the earth? Well, that's the sons of perdition. Those are the ones that are sponsoring this. That is that God that is urging the kings of the earth to give up their kingdom unto himself. So the nations that were angry are the one that causes this great loss of life and this great death that we see being fulfilled now by both fulfillments of the events of both witnesses. Just the false witnesses now are ascending up to this place that they call heaven in the heavens, this field of Shinar, the plain of Shinar, the moon. And the information that I got to give you the evidence on that is just incredible. So it says, and they heard a great voice, meaning it's time to go. This is the false witnesses from heaven, from the moon, saying unto them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven, the moon, in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. Wow. And I'll just warn anybody right now that if you are taking me like I can't produce all of the evidence for what I just said, you might want to just hold your happy little typing fingers, friend, because I mean what I say, and I mean serious business here. I can't say it all at once. It takes time to reveal all this. Time. Okay? So if you've got that dedication, if you've got that steadfast, honest want for the truth, and the Spirit of truth is telling you what's coming upon this world, that there's a strong delusion coming, well, you got to realize that some of us have been given sight to completely 100% reveal what it is. And just bear with me. Whether you know it or not, this is a depiction here of what we're going to see being portrayed in Zechariah. We're going to have these two women here that are talked about in Zechariah lifting up the ephah, and then we're going to find out that the ephah is associated with darkness, which is associated with the dark side of the moon, which is going to be associated with their temple, which is going to be associated with the Tower of Babel, of which, remember, they were trying to build it unto the heavens. Well, we're going to find out that they completed their task, that they did move this Shinar, they did move this Babylon. The original Tower of Babylon was built in the plain of Shinar. This Shinar, which was trying to reach up to heaven, now you guys know where it was really trying to reach up to build this Babylon, this ecclesiastical Babylon, this refuge in which they could be. Remember, I told you that some of these beings that were illuminated could not be in the actual presence of mankind or this world because they had been sealed from it? Well, they own the moon and they can walk around freely. We have some of these illuminated men of the Illuminati, just like my picture says, on the moon. And then we see that Ephraim, the remnant of their multitudes, tongues, and nations, being known as the United Nations, all types of nations are under the banner of Ephraim now, just not the English, are planning to go to the moon, just like we see these two women ushering them forward. Notice the two columns, Jachin and Boaz. What do we got for Boaz on the right? Remember, Boaz is on the right. We got a depiction of the heavens. What do we got right there? Crescent moon. Let's go to the column Jachin. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and save that for another video. Man, let us move forward here. Keep in mind the handshake symbol right here represents the brotherhood, those in the know. It represents the beckoning and the bringing of those in the know, these false witnesses, these initiates, to this region here. And then, of course, they're going to hope to come back. And you know, they've been bringing water there. Why are they bringing water there? Because the water here is about to be turned to wormwood. Exactly right. So now, if you really can understand, they take off right here before verse 13, before this huge earthquake takes place. So we have the second cup destruction that comes down, hits the city, right? Okay, hits the city that's spiritually like Sodom, Egypt, Golgotha, New York City, city of the dead. And then we see some time goes by. There's going to be sufferation. They let the event exist on with no help. They're not trying to remove any bodies. They just let it sit there. You know, now that they've been letting all these disasters go over, the government hasn't really been doing much help. People are complaining all the time that they're just letting people die and starve. Well, it's portrayed right here in the fullness that they don't try to do anything. Well, before this big earthquake hits of line 13, which I told you already before that I felt that right after the second cup, we would have that great earthquake that is associated with the New Madrid fault. Well, it says that right before this earthquake takes place, that's when these multitudes going up to the moon to rendezvous to the field of Shinar. And then now I can come on back to Zechariah, and I'm telling you, I got all the word breakdowns, I got the definitions, I got the books, I got the maps, I got the vision in my head that's already led me to the fullness of all this understanding, and then I got a drawing of over 20 years ago that I drew that has already got all this outlined in detail. Guess what? Guess what? I'm real. I'll be back.